Hi, I bring you this video as a matter of urgency. What I'm going to tell you will not make pharmaceutical companies happy, but the information here is substantiated. It may help the entire world's population to fight this escalating pandemic of Covid-19. I'm going to address the issue that was really focused on yesterday on all the major media channels as well as alternative media channels. And that is, why are African Americans and other groups of people of color getting an unfair share of COVID-19? Let me preface this with the fact that I am not a doctor nor a statistician, but I'm an analyst and I am a problem solver. And over the past 2 months, I've posted 3 videos describing controlled scientific studies that correlate vitamin D and infectious disease. Now here, I'm going to state facts, not conclusions, not at least my own conclusions, but you can draw your own. There is historical evidence that the treatment of tuberculosis, which was an early respiratory infectious disease, that was treated with sunshine. And this tuberculosis pandemic over time was very prevalent from 1859, when it was first identified or isolated, up through 1954 with major world pandemics. And here's an old photo showing the solar treatment in a U.S. sanatorium where tuberculosis was quarantined, and solar exposure was part of their treatment. So that just shows that it's been around a long time. I'm not just discovering anything new, but what I am doing is drawing attention to factors that explain why African Americans are getting their unfair share of COVID-19. All the studies that I researched correlate vitamin D and infectious disease. The studies recommend from 6,000 to 10,000 international units per day as the optimum intake, either via the sun or supplements. And no study recorded an upper limit of vitamin D as being toxic. And that included from 50,000 units to 100,000, and there was no toxicity determined. It has been found that 15 minutes of sun exposure wearing a bathing suit and with no sunscreen on will produce 20,000 international units of vitamin D. And limited exposure with only the legs and arms exposed to the sun, again without sunscreen, that 15 minutes would produce 3,000 units of vitamin D. So we get a lot from the sun if the sun is shining. And winter months, we get fewer days of sunshine. It's at a lower in at the horizon, so it's not as direct. And people who live above the 37th parallel, which includes New York, St. Louis, Denver, San Francisco, everything north of there does not get adequate sunshine during the winter months, but spring is coming. So this may be our salvation. Well, because of the physiology of dark skin not utilizing sunlight through their own natural processes to produce vitamin D compared to light-skinned people, the risk of infectious diseases increases with dark-skinned people. And studies show that vitamin D deficiency in people of color hampers the immune system to fight infectious disease. And this is accepted by the medical community and supported by research institutes. The primary variable is how much vitamin D is optimal. And blood tests can determine the levels of vitamin D. And I think that's really going to be the future of fighting the COVID-19. So 16 international units a day to around 20,000 international units is recommended. And especially in the winter months or cloudy days when we don't get enough sunshine, that's when we need to supplement. And my computer's running out of juice, so give me a second here. Okay, we're good. And here's a chart from a study that relates vitamin D deficiency. And as you can see, the title is Patients at Risk for Vitamin D Deficiency. Right up there at the top says African Americans. They need 4 to 6 times more sun-induced vitamin D than the population. And there are other factors, other situations where there's also increased risk. And I'm going to go ahead and name these because the African Americans are just at the top of the list, but the others are, I think, important too. And obesity is also on the list. Elderly, which we know that's highly correlated to the morbidity rate of COVID-19. People with fat malabsorption, such as cystic fibrosis, and we know that that's part of the complication of pneumonia is a form of cystic fibrosis. Also, people who live in northern latitudes and get little sun exposure, or those who are homebound and get no sun exposure, are also on this list. And also those who develop recurrent respiratory tract infections show to have a deficiency in vitamin D, and chronic sinusitis and nasal polyps. Now these are just the respiratory issues. There are other issues that show a correlation between vitamin D deficiency and other diseases such as diabetes and heart problems. So every news channel yesterday reported that across America, African Americans are disproportionately contracting COVID-19 disease compared to their proportion of the population. And most cities are reporting up to 70% of the cases of COVID-19 are African American or people of color, with only the proportion in the population of 30%. So they should only be getting 30% of the cases, but they're getting up to 70%. And these studies, or analysis at least, that I saw on the news channels yesterday were large cities. The two that they talked most about was Chicago and New Orleans, but I assume there's a similar proportion of people of color getting the COVID-19 in other large metropolitan cities across the U.S. I think the garbage men are out there. So I encourage those cities to test the cases of COVID-19 for blood vitamin D levels and look for a correlation between deficiencies and incidence of contracting the disease. And if it shows a direct correlation, the results will be conclusive and easily remedied. That's the wonderful part about this. Without intervention of costly pharmaceutical studies resulting in expensive medications, And I want to bring the attention to another issue that I discovered in the last couple of days. Excuse me. One of the many do-it-yourself videos in the last few days are focusing on making your own cloth masks, because masks are being encouraged. It wouldn't surprise me within the next few days that they absolutely require, demand, masks be worn outside. And almost every other country in the world, and certainly all the Asian countries, it's socially acceptable to wear masks. And we somehow have a stigma against wearing the masks in the United States. But I really recommend getting over that. Be smart. So what I saw in one of the videos that showed how to actually make a mask that's comparable to the 3M masks that are in such short supply, and that's the N95, because the N95 and greater are the only ones that will prevent you from getting the virus. The other masks prevent you from spreading it, but if everybody wears it and nobody's spreading it, then that's adequate. So what I concluded was this gentleman that was showing how to make this N95 comparable mask used a filter paper, and he said, now you have to spray it with lemon juice, which is used as a viral antiseptic. And he said that 3M infuses lemon juice into their masks. Oh, wow. I mean, why didn't we know that before? So my thought is this. Well, if you're making masks, spray the material with lemon juice. That's easy. Get a spray bottle and squeeze some lemons, and it's easy to do to any kind of mask you make. But in addition, it dawned on me that, I don't know if it's used anymore, but steamers used to be used when I was a kid. If you got a cold or the flu or whatever, you put a tent over your head, a blanket or something, and you breathed in the steam, the hot air. And sometimes they would put a menthol gel in a little container at the top, so you got the benefit of the menthol. But what if you just put a little bit of lemon juice in that water, so when you breathed in the steam, the hot air, which is good in itself, according to all the studies, the virus doesn't like heat. So breathe in lemon juice with the hot air. I think they probably still make steamers, but I wouldn't use the cold air kind, the kind that vibrates. I would use the actual hot water steamer type. And if anyone knows any more about that use of steamers, possibly with lemon juice, please leave a comment. In fact, I invite anybody who has an idea or confirming these thoughts that I have or discounting them, either way, please leave your comment. Well, vitamin C, which is what lemon juice has in it, ascorbic acid, it's been discussed forever as supporting the immune system. And since it's been shown that coronavirus SARS-2, which is the virus that causes the COVID-19 disease, that they don't survive in heat. So this is just so exciting to me to think that there might be alternatives to the issues of pharmaceuticals being tested and developed, and the vaccine. I mean, until the vaccine is ready and available to use across the world, why not use these homeopathic remedies? And I don't think anything I've mentioned is going to hurt anybody. And golly, it might really help. So, my conclusions are that with the coming of spring and the longer daylight hours, try to get daily sun exposure. Of the recommended 15 minutes, do not overexpose. Do not let your skin sunburn. In this case, more is not better. Limit it. I'll put a link to the studies that I've quoted in this video below. And remember, continue to maintain social distancing and isolation and staying at home. And if you do have to go out to the doctor, to the store, or if you want to exercise outside, wear the mask. Don't wait to be told you have to. We know that they help, so wear the mask. Please share this video with as many people as you can so that it might eventually get to the attention of those who can further study the information that I've presented. Well, I send you my love to all of you. I am Nana.